All right, troops, strong and conditioned, live and direct from the Chateau de Burpees in Glasgow, Scotland, not Glasgow, as the Americans like to call it. So I'm just preempting Jamie so he doesn't make that mistake because
I
he
never,
knows.
never would I. And it's
Yeah,
Edinburgh.
yeah.
I'm well aware. I'm aware.
A lot of Glaswegians get offended when the word Glasgow is mispronounced. If you go onto like TikTok or Instagram, you'll get these videos where you'll get reactions from Scottish people when it's always of total disgust when my home city is mispronounced. So
Yeah, I
right,
can say that I grew up around a lot of Welsh place names like Ballakinwood and so because of that, I mean we have Dutch place names and things like that where I grew up. So I can pronounce certain words. I'm a bit more cultured than most Americans, I'd like to think.
well, going by the blog you write and your website, I think it's safe to say you're a very cultured gentleman, Jamie. But before
Thank
we
you.
move
All right,
on,
I
or
appreciate it.
before we move ahead, I actually need to introduce you because I usually introduce my guests before we start
Oh, all
speaking.
right.
But we have went right into it. So tonight, I am very honoured. This is a man who I have been reading about for a very long time, and it's a man who, if you'd have asked me 10 years ago if I would have actually been having a conversation with him, I would have looked at you like you have two heads. It
Really?
is. Yeah, because like I always looked up to guys like yourself, and I was always just a guy training in Glasgow. I never expected to have a podcast or a YouTube channel. And it was guys like yourself who changed the way I thought about training. But we'll get to that. Let's tell the people your name.
Okay.
Because there's some people that listen
All
to this
right.
podcast who won't know you, Jamie.
All right. Would you like me to introduce myself, or are you going to do it?
Do you know what, Jamie? You introduce yourself. Go for it, mate. The first ever
All right.
guest to
Well,
introduce himself.
all right. My name is Jamie Lewis. I am the world's preeminent strength historian. And I was recently seen on ESPN's 30 for 30 episode about American Gladiators, if you'd like to check me out there. But I am somebody who has been writing about strength training for the last 15 or so years. And while I was doing that, I was challenged that I didn't know what I was talking about. And so I competed a couple of times in powerlifting and broke a 40-year-old world record in raw powerlifting. I broke the all-time raw, not drug tested, but the all-time classic raw, no wraps. It was just knee sleeves and a belt on the squat. I didn't even wear it on the deadlift or the bench, and I got the total, and I tied the squat, so that was nice. And yeah, and I've just continued to write about it, and I got more into the history of lifting rather than the actual training side of it because that became boring to me. I found that actually we didn't need to talk about training so much as like finding out where the roots of history, where the roots of the training came from. That interested me. So starting with somatotyping, actually, I really was like, all right, so we've all been saying these words. Why do we say them? And then I started digging, and then I found out, and I was like, well, that's fucking asinine. And so then I just kept digging, and now I have the thing that I'm like most proud of that I've done so far is this podcast called Prize Fighters, Circus Freaks, and Gangsters that I have with this historian. She's a food historian, Greta Harden. She and I are best friends now, and so she writes about the history, or she has a podcast about the history of American food that I love. And I wanted to team with somebody who knew the culture aspect of it so that people, when they continue to ask questions like, why do the 19th century people train the way they do or look the way they do or eat the way they do or what was their food like? I have this genuine authority in the subject who can come in and help answer those questions. And we're teaching using films and TV and things like that set in the 19th century as the hook. So we discuss the historicity, and that way you learn about the martial arts and the training and the fashion, because you don't think about it, but the belt that they were wearing back then was not even for the reason that people wear belts now. Never mind did it work the same way or look the same way. And their clothes were different and everything was different. So it changed the way they did things and it changed their mindset. And that's what I'm trying to teach, the mindset of the old school and how I came to do the things I did.
Right. Okay. That's fascinating, Jamie.
That was a very lengthy introduction for myself, but I'm a historian and an accidental power lifter. My God, that was the world's longest introduction.
One thing that jumps out is the history aspect, because it looks like you went back in time to find a webcam from some point in history.
God, it is a 4K webcam. I swear to God, it's just that this room has literally no lights in it, and there's a ring camera, a lone ring camera far away, and it's behind a TV. So you know what? I'll have it if you ever have me on again because of this horrid camera situation. I'll do the best I can. I'll arrange something else. I'll have a light. One light.
Jamie, my podcast is all about the content. It's not about the aesthetics. As long as we get some meaty information, that's all that really matters at this point. Wow, Jamie, you seem, I think you're one of my most intimidating guests due to the wealth of knowledge. One thing
well, I didn't intend to be.
No, it's okay. Take it as a compliment. One thing that I do want to touch upon, just to create a journey here, is your origins with regards to your training journey. Where did it start?
Oh, okay. Well, my initial training start was in 7th grade. I went on I guess grade 7 for you. And grade 7, I went on this canoeing trip for 2 weeks in the Adirondacks. And the Adirondack Mountains are in New York State. And so we just canoed every single day. And everybody else was eating fish because everybody there liked fish. And I'm allergic to fish. So I didn't eat them. So I just ate peanut butter sandwiches and paddled for like 8 hours a day, every day. And then read like Mad Magazine every night. And this was like formative to my life. And so when I came back, I had like little biceps from eating these peanut butter sandwiches and paddling. And I got so many compliments that it like stuck in me. And then I didn't work out again after that. But in 9th grade, I got pinned under 135 pounds in a bench press test for American football. And so we had to just bench it as many times as we could. And I had never bench pressed before. And I weighed like 130 pounds. So it just went crashing to my chest. I'm like 5'4", 5'5", which is, I don't know what in centimeters. I can do kgs, but I can't do. But yeah, so I was 60 kgs. And I don't know how tall that is in centimeters, but in any event, I'm a short guy. And so I went crashing to my chest. And then I was mortified because the whole football team was there and they were laughing at me. So then I just started working out like an insane person. Every free period I had, I would go into the weight room and work out. Sometimes when the weight room wasn't open after school, I would just rip the door open and go in and train. Every time I had the opportunity, I would train. I started running every day because Bruce Lee ran 3 miles every day. So I started running every day, 3 miles. And I did that for maybe 10 years of my life. Just every day ran 3 miles, rain or shine, constantly, a 5K. And I would run it in about 20 minutes. So
there's two things that immediately grab my attention here. The first one is the bench press, the dose of reality, because you're not the first guest that's came on and spoke about being crushed under the bench press. I think that's a rite of passage for a lot of people. It's a red pill moment in training when they first attempt a bench press and find themselves almost guillotined by an Olympic bar.
It's not a movement you would do. And it, now in the age of the internet, it's something you see a lot of, kids are seeing it on the YouTube or whatever, but I was not lifting weights. I knew of it. I would see comic book characters bench pressing in the Secret Wars or whatever. The Hulk's bench pressing 60,000 tons or whatever, but I never considered a bench press before. So when I got to that test, it was like, all right, let's see what we can do. Apparently this is something I can do. So I just bang right to my chest. Like, well, apparently it's not something I could do. It's something I need to learn how to do. So, yeah, and that's all it is. That's all lifting is just learning how to do something.
Yeah. Well, what do you think it is about that bench press moment that spurs people on to try and tame the iron, so to speak?
Shame. Shame is exactly what does it. I mean, I'm a wildly competitive guy. And the year that I grew those little biceps, I spent half the year suspended for fighting. I fought everybody. In fact, I even fought a famous actor who was in a movie that won awards that year. In Lord of the Flies, there was a kid who was in Lord of the Flies, and the kid who ate the lizard, I beat that kid up and I was suspended for it. So Yeah, I fought every single person pretty much in the school that year.
That was one of my favorite movies growing up. Actually, I believe it was
Was it
Balthazar
really?
Getty who was in the
Yeah,
lead role.
he ended up the captain of our wrestling team, and he was a great he was a really good wrestler, and he went on to Penn State, wrestled there, and I don't know what he does now, but he's a cool kid.
Yeah. That's a flashback. So basically, you fell into training through these peanut butter induced biceps.
Yep. Yeah. And we had my brother had little like weeder weights in the basement. They were like the plastic ones filled with sand. I don't know if you remember those. They're really old school, but yeah, they were little tiny plates. And yeah, we would do curls and stuff like that in the basement. Yeah. And when I got into college, my one buddy and I, who, this is kind of funny, but this is a dude for like 4 years. We trained together every single day, basically. Like hang out all the time. We would watch like Rocky movies and do push-ups and sit-ups and stuff like that. And then we would go lifting and we would go play basketball and we would go out with girls afterwards. Well, he turned all that into gay porn later, like gay for pay porn. It was like literally everything we did became a movie. I was like, ooh, well, yeah. And then he got outed on Tyra Banks by his girlfriend for being in love with me. That was something. It was exciting.
It's always interesting.
Is this interview living up? Is this living up to what to your expectations?
Not yet, but I think we're getting there, Jamie.
Shit.
I think we're getting
there. All
right.
That's
a funny point that you bring up with the Rocky movies, because I can always tell the age range of my guests when they bring up their influence with regards to who introduced them to lifting. And I tend to find the younger ones go for Dragon Ball Z.
Oh, shit. Oh, you didn't hear that. I'm sorry. I would just, this computer dinged and I was like, oh, shit. Did that come out of the speakers? Go ahead.
Sensory overload. Yeah, the younger guests I have, they were inspired by things like Dragon Ball Z, which I'm not too aware of myself because I'm in my 40s, whereas I speak to guys that are in my age range, and it's always Rocky. And
oh, no, it goes back further to He-Man. We were all inspired by He-Man growing up. The Dragon Ball Z is just, of us, is He-Man. At least in America.
Yeah, but the thing about He-Man is like, I grew up watching He-Man, but the aesthetic never inspired me to go lifting because I never looked at He-Man in a training context, because I was brought up in the age where it was like Jean-Claude Van Damme movies were starting to make their presence felt. And you also had the kind of more lower budget ones with Billy Blanks, No Retreat, No Surrender. And they always
people need to know about Billy Blanks. He is the truth, dude.
Oh, Billy Blanks was a complete badass. He starred in a movie called King of the Kickboxers.
God, he
I always remember this movie.
Shit, yeah, King of the. In fact, I watched it recently because it's on a streaming service that's free in the United States. Oh my God, he can't. There were some great fighters in that movie too, but fuck, he can't act.
Oh.
Fuck.
Okay, right. You're right. He can't act, but he had presence.
He had he had physical presence because he's built like Wesley Snipes, I think.
Yeah. And he also had those wild staring eyeballs. Like, you knew he meant business, and you just knew the guy was
all of the acting he did.
I was a huge fan, but these were the movies that introduced me to training because they involved training in the actual movie.
Oh, yeah. The Cannon films really did that. The Cannon films were huge on that. They loved the training montage, like No Retreat, No Surrender.
Yeah. That's one thing I miss about these movies, is that you don't get the training montage anymore, which is quite funny because fitness is so much bigger.
There was an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie with Joe Manganiello nobody saw, where they were crooked cops. The name of it escapes me, but you can put it in the show notes. It was a fantastic movie, and Arnold trains in it before he goes and like does crooked cop shit. And there's a meme going around right now where Arnold's screaming at a guy, and he's like, "You shut the fuck up! You screaming at me with your fat fucking ass, your fat jelly roll ass! Shut the fuck up! Who are you to fucking talk to me? Do some fucking sit-ups." That's from that movie, and he's like doing curls and all kinds of shit in it. And
It's
there was
fun.
another movie I saw, training sequence. Oh, the TV show Warrior. That was a Bruce Lee's concept for a movie. It's on Max. It's a phenomenal movie, or a phenomenal TV show about Chinese American immigrants in San Francisco in the 1850s or in the 1880s. That's what I've been doing my podcast about. But
Yeah.
so yeah, and there's tons of martial arts. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't really consume any media nowadays. I don't watch TV. I don't watch Netflix. I always just watch YouTube or I look at my phone. I don't really watch movies anywhere, so I'm probably missing out in that respect. But
I should
I
hope
know
you're
the
fact
army
checking this
clip.
YouTube shit, because Jesus, really? What do you watch on
Yeah.
YouTube?
Do you know, I find myself watching like space documentaries at night just to get myself to sleep,
Oh,
things
okay.
like that.
All right.
And I also watch a YouTube channel called Soft White Underbelly. Have
Okay.
you heard of it? It's basically a guy
I
from
have not.
California, and he interviews people, and it's like prostitutes and drug dealers and pimps and hackers, and
Okay.
it's just a person sitting on a stool, but it's absolutely mind blowing. It's enthralling. You don't take your eyes off the screen because it's really painful stories. So that's something that I would definitely recommend. But I'm veering off.
Some light viewing before bed. That's what you watch before you go to sleep. Holy shit. My God. So 20 years ago, you were just going to rotten.com and watching people's executions before you, just a couple of, I'm going to watch this guy jump out of a window a couple of times before I go to sleep. Maybe I'll watch a couple of people, I get hammer attacks before I nod off.
It's fun.
There you
It's
go.
funny you say that because your video camera quality looks like a live leak video from like.
Oh, you had to come back with something. All right, so you're a serial killer and I have a shitty camera. Fair enough. All right, 1-1. Yeah. There you go. One for you, one for me.
Right. Okay.
All right.
So I want to
How
pick
many
up on
bodies
some.
are buried under your house? That's what I'm starting to wonder now. Yeah. You
None
have a
as of
large
yet.
walk-in freezer.
None as of yet. But I want to go back on what you said about the influence of Bruce Lee as well. I thought that was quite
Oh, yeah.
interesting because when you speak about running, I always think about people training in that respect, and it means that they weren't limited by the information that was available to them at that point because it was quite scarce. Whereas nowadays, people would be dissuaded from running because it affects the potential for muscle growth, which we know is not to be true, but it's a
yeah. It's just people are fucking lazy. Also, lifters do not like being jostled. If you ever like just jostle a lifter, get into the gym and like throw a shoulder into them, they flip the fuck out. They don't like being jostled. They have no balance. So they can't handle being jostled. And running is just jostling yourself. So it doesn't feel good because you're bouncing up and down, and they don't like that. They like everything to be slow and steady and in very specific planes of motion. And yes.
It's funny you say that, Jamie, because you've just like conjured up a thought in my head, and I don't think that gyms are really positive places at this current moment in time. I think they're quite tense. I think there's a lot of people in gyms who become totally encapsulated by training. Therefore, if they go into a gym and they see that their machine that they start their routine with is taken, they are instantly stressed.
Yeah.
I tend to think that's the vibe in training now.
I can blame one word for that entire thing, and that word is program. When you and I were growing up, we didn't call what we did a program. We didn't do a program, but if we were to look something up for what we wanted to do, we would look up a workout or we would look up a routine, but program never entered the sentence, or it never entered the conversation. That program as a word entered our vernacular like that only since the dawn of the internet. You know what I mean? And so so people think that you can program for success in lifting, right? Do you believe that?
No, I believe that hard work is ultimately the driver of success, regardless of what you do. I think that if you want to be specific, you have to do a movement, but I think that it's more mindset driven.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, the reason why I asked the programming question, well, it was a leading question, and then you gave me nothing, but I'm going to run with it anyway. So people misunderstand the word program. The very word program is designed to be, you dick. It was supposed to be a teaching moment, and then you fucked it all up. So you would be great in a relay race, or like maybe battle rapping. Maybe we should jump into that after this. But in any, you're killing me. I'm sorry for coughing without hitting in mute. But anyway. Program does not mean computer program. It is not you cannot program for success. Program was based on theatrical program, which is what these guys were back in the day. They were people who were in the theater. They were actors and violinists and singers, because nobody wants to watch except for now, because people are so fucking boring. Nobody wants to watch a person lift something up and down slowly. I don't know why people do. They want to watch Frank Yang fucking doing crazy ass weird violin shit and then deadlifting drunk. That's Arthur Saxon. Arthur Saxon never performed sober, so he couldn't have programmed for success because he was never sober. And also, program didn't even mean that until the 1990s. Like, it didn't have to do with computers until the 1990s. So you cannot program for success. That is nonsense. And it's, yeah. So there we go.
So, do you know, I'm really happy that you brought that up, because it was something I wanted to go into with you, and I'm going to speak about my own experience. I used to be quite limited in respects with regards to being like consumed by a program, because I like routine in my life. So I would like things in a certain order, but it was once I started reading your works and started to get into your thought processes with regards to training, and I don't want to call it experimental, but just going in with a free mind and not being locked into anything specific, doing what you wanted to do within an hour. And one workout always stood out to me, and I always remember it. I always remember you writing about doing chin-ups for an hour. Just do chin-ups for an hour. And that to me was an alien concept, because it seemed so simple, but it seemed like something you wouldn't ever do.
Yeah,
because it wouldn't make sense. But when I did it, which I did, I was sore for fucking days. Absolutely sore for days. I probably had one of the worst abdominal DOMs that I've ever had at that point.
That's awesome.
And I kind of seen what it was all about, and it really influenced me from that point on. How did you come about that mindset with regards to training?
So it goes back to what you were talking about, and I got derailed with the program thing, but we didn't have programs back in the day. And so we had lots of diverse influences. And one of mine was Bruce Lee. I always thought he was super cool. And, it wasn't until I was an adult that I realized he was like a crazy cokehead and his career was crashing. But in my head, I always had him as this superhero. So like, I would do his workout shit, even though I didn't know he was fucking filled with cocaine while he was training for like all that time. And so but like I would just take caffeine because we have caffeine and I can run for it all this time. So that 3 hours a day thing became a routine for me, because I saw it as like, for him, it was just a demonstration of his commitment, I guess, to fitness. And that's just how people started their day back then. It was like, I'm committed to this, and so this is how I'm going to start my day. And I've come to find this is how old school people did it too. And I did it for the longest time, stopped, and now I've started again. But so it was like we would take ideas like that, and then like with Rocky, we would watch that and we would train like that. And then we would see people in the magazines, and they would be training with bodybuilding stuff. And so we would just do all of it. And that's how people used to train. We didn't, like, even when people wrote down their programs, that's what I did when I went to the gym for the third time, and that was my serious time of the day. And the other times I didn't even write down. You know what I mean? And that's how people have always been. And everybody's gotten lost in the sauce thinking that they're going to work themselves too hard. And it's crazy.
Why do you think people have become lost in the sauce in that respect?
Because they're fucking lazy, and we've inculcated this laziness because there were a lot of magazines telling people, oh my God, you're going to fucking overtrain. And I was laughing about this for years and years. And I'd write, and I guess, I'd write, I'd be like, the only time you can do it is rhabdo, and rhabdo only happens in CrossFit and almost only happens with these crazy sit-ups they do on a rounded Roman chair. Have you seen this? It's how Dana Lynn Bailey got rhabdo. And so they did like flop way back, and it must be an amazing stretch, but it looks like it breaks your back. And they give themselves rhabdo doing that. But like, it's impossible. I have trained because I'm a wrestler. So we would go to wrestling camp and you'd wake up, you'd run 5 miles, then you'd eat breakfast, then you'd go to your first training, your first wrestling session. And then you would maybe grab a nap, wake up, eat, lift, wrestle again, sleep, wrestle, eat, lift, wrestle, and then go back to sleep. And we did that constantly. And then we would get home and like out train. Like I would join this platoon fitness training thing that was supposed to be run by Navy SEALs. It was, remember when the SEAL, well, I don't know, you had SAS training in Glasgow, but did you have that? Like
I don't know. They'll have it down in like England or something like that, or like they'll probably bases, but they don't have it. And you don't just walk into an SAS training centre in Glasgow.
No, I mean they called it SAS training or SEAL training, but it was like you train like one of them. So they would put you through really hard calisthenics workouts.
Yeah, right. Okay, yeah, I think we've got one called British Military Fitness where they take people in a park and they run about and they do sit-ups and squats and run up hills.
That was huge in the US in the 2000s. And we had a legit, because it was one of the first ones in my area was very wealthy. So we had one of the first ones pop up there, and it was a guy who was in the SEALs. He was this badass. And my buddy and I used to train him into the fucking ground every day. And he kept coming in earlier and earlier. And we just took it as a challenge. Like, we are grinding this SEAL to death. All this man wants to do is drink and party, and we are fucking up his whole life. And we did it with a smile. But so yeah, I just grew up like that. Like if we wanted something, we just did it a lot. Like I love drawing. So I used to draw a lot, and I got really, really good at it. And now I just love writing so much. I just write a lot, and I haven't really gotten back to the drawing, but yeah, I love lifting. So I got really good at it because I love doing it.
So what's your view on high rep calisthenics for muscle building, for example?
They obviously work. I mean, if you want to look at modern examples, you just look at the bar stars guys. I mean, they do lift as well, but I mean, you see those guys who just do calisthenics and they are fucking monsters. Plus, how many more girls or guys or whatever people you want to have sex with, how many more of them you think you're going to attract with that on at a park in front of a bunch of people, like just randomly busting out a flag and then a one-handed handstand or something? You're going to get way more people with that than you will with showing some person your video of you doing some fucking bench press nobody wants to see in the first place. I guarantee it. Doesn't matter how much you bench press, nobody gives a fuck. Especially not the girl you want to fuck or the guy you want to fuck.
That's hilarious, because gyms are at this point, they are like, there's more tripods in a gym than there is in a fucking Universal film studio lot.
I'm mortified by filming myself, which is why we have this situation going on. It's a 4K camera. I swear to God, it's just there's no lights in this room.
So where do you think this fascination that people have developed to film themselves doing really boring lifts from like a bench press or an overhead press when it's just going from A to B? Like, what is it? Is there a lack of creativity, or is it just narcissism?
No, they're posers. They're posers. They're posers. That's what it is. I don't film myself lifting because I'm there to lift and I really enjoy it. And I'm not fucking up my flow and missing my music because I want other people to see what I'm doing. I want to enjoy what I'm doing and do it well because it gives me joy to do it well. So I'm not going to not listen to my headphones. And so I don't film anything I do. But these people don't give a fuck about that. They want the image of being a lifter. And then they want to be able to have proof that, yes, I lifted, and I bought these shoes, and see, I have the right shoes, and I paid $150 for that belt. And so the belt thing was literally just so people could do a continental before. It's not there to support your back. It's there because people used to rest their belt on it, then roll the bar up their chest because they were too fat to do it clean.
Yes. So do you think that the belt is a pointless thing in lifting?
Mostly. It's an excuse to be fat.
Do you know?
I squatted. So I did a fourth attempt in a meet where I hadn't been squatting with a belt. I just did it last second because this guy I knew wanted to do a meet. He wanted to get numbers on the board, which I fucking hate. But I went and did it with him, and I was drunk, and I had no belt on, and I did my. I don't remember what I did for my third attempt because I didn't give a fuck about it. But then they asked me to do a fourth attempt to break their federation record. So I did a fourth attempt, 618, no belt, and drunk. And yeah, so
I
used to do everything drunk, by the way. I don't recommend it, but it's possible.
I like to use a belt now and again, just for peace of mind when I'm doing things like squats and things like that. So I think it has got some merit.
Some people, when they drive through a yellow light, they kiss their hand and then touch the roof of their car. That might help. I don't know. You might want to do that too.
That must be an American thing. We call them an amber chancellor in Scotland.
Oh, okay. And
so
that's a much it's mellifluous the way you said it. Yeah, all right. It's that's Sean Connery. Like it's a soothing accent. I enjoy it.
Yeah, it's always commented on the Scottish accent, but it's very hard to understand for a lot of people. And I do think a lot of my American guests are just too polite at times to tell me that they don't understand a question. And sometimes
I genuinely don't understand how that's possible. You're speaking clear English. It's just you haven't there's a slight change to it, but I don't know. Are they American Southerners?
It's the pronunciation of certain letters that catches people off guard. Like for example, when I was in America,
see the way you say letters. For instance, the letters that might throw somebody off. I guess. Yeah, my dad had a tracheotomy, so he spoke through he'd put a thumb over his stoma and speak through this really gravelly voice. So I guess I became really attuned to understanding people, maybe.
Yeah. I think it's there's certain words like time. If an American would pronounce the I differently, they would say time, whereas a Scottish person would say time. The I becomes an I. So
but we all have. I mean, I personally never really got into the Shrek movies, but I have seen enough of it in bits and pieces. Like I was a teacher for a year, so it was constantly on in some room, and how the fuck did that not sink into their heads? I mean, I know they said the word time in that fucking movie over and over because I've heard it. I've heard Mike Myers say the word. God damn. I apologize for God damn. Our education system has failed us.
Oh, well, do you know what? I don't think it's a bad education system that America has. I think it's one of the best in the world. I think Scotland's is on a downturn, even though the Scottish education system was one of the best in the world at one point.
Oh, yes. The University of Edinburgh was the fucking place to be in the 19th century. In the 20th century, I don't think it fell off. I think it just didn't get as much press, maybe.
Yeah.
But that was, I mean, that's where the modern medicine was born. You guys birthed medicine.
Yeah, well,
Joseph
I mean,
Lister invented all the antiseptic practices in Edinburgh.
Penicillin was invented by a Scotsman.
No shit, I did not know that.
Yeah, television was invented by a Scotsman.
Mechanical television was invented by, I know my shit. Mechanical television, and nobody ever fucking used mechanical television. It didn't work.
Let's not go there, Jamie. Don't try to intellectually thug me out of this here. It's well known that it was John Logie Baird that invented the TV, a Scotsman, may I add. And can I also throw this into the mix that the telephone was also invented by a Scotsman, Alexander Graham Bell. So basically, Scottish people are responsible for you guys binging on the Kardashians and doom scrolling TikTok on a daily basis. So you have us to thank for that, Jamie.
You know what? I don't know if you recall this, but I'm very pro Scotland and Scottish history. And I wrote a really, really excellent article about Donald Dinnie back in the day. And I even compared him directly against Jim Thorpe, because Jim Thorpe is America's version of Donald Dinny, and that man was a bad motherfucker too. But like, he couldn't hold a candle to Donald Dinny, and also didn't have a beer named after him, and didn't like isn't still memorialized as, I mean, he should be. I mean, we should change the Statue of Liberty to a statue of Jim Thorpe. But like, you guys do that with Donald Dinny, and I love that. I love Scotland. If I was going to move away from America, I would either move to Finland or Scotland.
But it's actually really interesting that you've said that, Jamie, because I have two brothers who stay in Finland. And my father actually emigrated to Finland. And
oh, interesting.
Yeah, he stayed in Helsinki for about 20 years. And the most amazing thing about that is that my dad met a woman while he was traveling Southeast Asia, Sri Lanka, and fell in love and decided to go and stay in Finland. And he fucking hitchhiked from Glasgow to Finland the whole way.
What year was that?
This was in the 1990s, probably about 1992.
People were still hitchhiking in the 90s.
Yeah,
in Scotland. That was it was dead in America. Serial killers literally killed it.
Yeah. I've always had a fascination with hitchhiking, I think, through my father.
Oh, interesting. Do you still do it? Or do you
No, because I drive now. I don't need to. But when I stayed in Australia, I stayed in a remote park called Mildura, and the hostel that I stayed in was about 5 miles away from the nearest store. So you would just walk, and people would literally just stop in their pickup truck and just beckon you to get in the back. And you would jump
you got
in.
to ride in those dope ass Holden pickup trucks. Oh, yeah. Oh, they have such fucking cool ass pickups in Australia.
Yeah, I actually got a job in Australia through hitchhiking.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. I just jumped in this guy's truck, and within 5 minutes, he'd offered me a job in a scrapyard.
That's dope.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing. But one thing I wanted to touch upon was one of your programs, which I attempted for a while. And I know one of my friends.
I like to call them protocols because I really like to get away from the word program. But I know everybody uses the word program, but it's really it's led everyone astray. But
yeah, okay. Apologies for that.
But anyway, it's fine. It's fine. I've written a book called The Anti-Programming Manifesto. I'm gonna look like a real fucking dickhead if I don't speak up and be like, it's not a fucking program. I get it. You guys are all entitled to being wrong. It's just, I wish you would stop being wrong because it hurts me deeply. I'll fix my fucking camera if you stop using that stupid word. But anyway, go ahead.
The word program will never leave my lips again.
Strangle you.
But this protocol, it fascinated me, and I learned about it through a friend who did it. He also made a YouTube compilation of his workouts, Jared Miller. And
which protocol is this?
It's the Famine Beast and Ferocity.
Yeah, Feast, Famine, and Ferocity. Yep. Nice.
What was the origins of this program?
They were twofold. So, well, maybe threefold. So I was able to take what I had read about the Vikings and also so I'd read this book. Have you ever read The Warrior Diet back in the day by Ori Hofmeckler?
Yes.
Okay. So that book was the shit. And I recommend people read it if I'm talking in the mic like that makes a difference. Like it adds emphasis. But anyway, I recommend people read it because it's not entirely accurate. It's written by this guy who made his money as a writer for Playboy, but he and maybe a cartoonist, but he was in the Israeli Special Forces, and he studied the way that Greeks and Romans used to eat and train, and then he applied his Israeli Special Forces training to that, and he made this diet and training book based on it, and it was phenomenal. So the root of this book, and any book that I write that is diet and training based and with history, I have Ori Hofmeckler to thank, and I don't ever want anybody to think that I have invented this idea. This is Ori Hofmeckler, and the man was a fucking genius. But so I'm taking the ball and running with it. And so So, but what he didn't cover in there was the fact that with the Greeks and the Romans, they were eating a lot of carbohydrates, and that's basically what was in the book. You remember it was a lot of stews and lentils and rice and stuff like that. Well, they all got their meat on holiday feasts. That's why like there used to be holiday feasts up through the Middle Ages and shit like that. It was the nobility fed people. So you would not eat a lot of meat during the week or whatever, but there was a fucking Catholic feast every 3 fucking days. So you'd eat meat on that day because they'd kill 3 cows and stew them up or whatever, and everybody would eat. And so he missed that part, but I picked it up. And so, and I started digging more, and I was like, oh, well, in the summer they trained, they were always rowing and rowing and rowing. And I thought back to my rowing in Adirondacks. And like, I was like, oh, that makes sense. They're getting jacked that way. That's building a lot of muscular strength. And then they're changing and they're not eating as much because mostly they're fucking rowing, and you can only bring so much food with you on campaign and things like that. You're eating what you find. So they're going through these protracted periods of not eating, certainly not eating 6 times a day, and not eating perfectly pulsed 30 grams of protein or whatever the fuck people think they need to eat. Not doing any of that. They're maybe not eating one day, and then they were eating 3 days worth of food the next day, even though they did 6 days worth of lifting in that time. You know what I mean? And so they were getting all these different amounts of working out and things like that. And so I was trying to figure out like how to build a book out of that. And then I went to jail, and I was a drunk going into jail. And so I hadn't really trained for like 6 months. And so, and I woke up in jail like, oh, fuck me. How the fuck did I get here? Like, and then I was there for like basically 11 months and for a DUI, and it sucked, but I had to get back into shape into jail. So I had my Rocky moment of like, well, fuck it, I better start doing push-ups. Like I just rolled over in bed and was like, I better start doing push-ups. And I started doing push-ups and pull-ups off my bunk. But the first 30 days I was there, I was in this thing called quarantine. And so we barely ate. It was, 1,500 calories a day at most. It was very small meals. And we were fucking hungry. And because I was so hungry, I couldn't think about doing anything else other than eating. And so I just lifted or worked out. Like I made up ways to work out, like lifting buckets of water and like running up and down stairs. And so I just trained myself constantly, and I got real ripped. And then the other 10 months after that, like I was just eating as much protein as I could and working out as much as I could and staying as lean as I could with the opportunities that I had to work out. And that all kind of culminated in this book, which was, well, shit, I realized what I always knew and what everybody has done back in the day, which is if you go through a few weeks or a few months in the case of like old school boxers of training around the clock and eating really fucking like strict and ascetically and or very lean, it will like lean you out, and then you can bulk up again, and your body just sucks up the nutrients because you've been starving it and like grinding every nutrient you can out of that, and really like making your body into the most efficient machine it could be. And I figured that out from dieting for powerlifting meets, not really dieting for them, but like cutting for them. I realized that like you are turning your body into a fucking furnace. Like people would sit next to me and be like, God damn, like you are literally like sitting next to a heat lamp, because my body was radiating heat. I was just like ready to go at all times. So like when you start feeding your body when it's in that state, you can eat anything you fucking want and your body just sucks it up. And that's how you have all these guys back in the day who were jacked as fuck, even though you're like, well, why can't I be this big that now? And they must have done this and their genetics that. And it's like, no, he just worked really fucking hard. And then, you know, if he knew he had to take some pictures coming up and he was a little fat, he would just exercise more and eat less. That was literally it.
So like, just to pick up on what you said, because it's interesting you spoke about your experience in prison and how you began to work out in there. And that kind of ties in with a lot of the stuff I do, because a lot of my workouts are based around prison workouts, so to speak, where it's just high rep calisthenics. And
did you go to like a big prison, or did you meet?
No, I've never been to prison in my life. I've never been to prison in my life. I just started following guys on YouTube who were doing these workouts, and it was like a red pill moment for me as well, because I had been lifting weights for years and lockdown occurred and I had no access to a gym and I had to find a different way to train.
Yep.
And I get into the whole calisthenics scene, particularly high rep, where we were doing like 500 to 1,000 burpees. And the results that I got were very profound, both on a physical and mental level. So what kind of workouts were you doing at that time in your life?
The one that like I like to recall the most, it was the most profound, and I think I have an actual number that I can give to it. Was so I had that month in quarantine where I was doing the pull-ups and push-ups, and then I went to this different part of the jail that was like for short timers there, and it was basically like a large trailer, for lack of a better term. So it wasn't 100 meters long, maybe 50 meters long. And it like all the bunks were on either side, and there was a big gap in the center. So I would walk from one side to the other and wall sit for as long as I possibly could, and then walk to the other side and wall sit for as long as I could. And I had these certain programs that I would listen to on the radio. So like it was essentially like a podcast. I would listen to this NPR things. It was like the BBC radio. And so for an entire program, I would just do wall sits, walking from one side to the other. And then when it changed to something else, I would do pull-ups for that time. And while I just listened to these things, I would just do pull-ups. And so I would walk like one length and then do some pull-ups, maybe 10 pull-ups or 20 pull-ups, and then walk a length and then do 20 pull-ups. And so that's how I was training in that. And when I got to the gym at the end of that 3 months, I squatted 500 with no warm-up. And I hadn't lifted for, like I said, 5 or 6 months prior to going to the gym, and I was a drunken wreck. And like, I probably weighed maybe 180 pounds. I hadn't put a bar on my back in all that time, and I easily squatted 500.
What do you think the effect of the wall sits had on your fitness? Because I think they've just released studies that show they have a profound effect on stopping high blood pressure or something to that effect.
Oh, really? That's really interesting. I had no idea. I've always liked wall sits because I had terrible flexibility. And so doing free squats was really uncomfortable for me because like it just hurt everything and it felt unnatural and I couldn't really stay upright. And now I can do a third world squat. So I like doing them. But so doing a wall sit was like I love doing isometrics. I've always enjoyed them. And that is we did them in wrestling all the time, and I just grew to really enjoy them. So that's really why I chose to do them.
Yeah. What do you find so fascinating about isometrics? What effects do you think they have on your overall fitness levels or strength levels?
They allow you to engage more of your muscle fibers. I think in that way that people talk about the mother who can lift the car up off her baby in, times of crisis. That's what isometrics do. And, the muscle control guys back in the day, like Maxic and things like that, flexing your muscles like bodybuilders does. And isometrics are like, that's what isometrics are. Gives you better definition. It literally, it'll break up all the fascial problems that you have or help do it along with stretching, things like that. It is, I would say, absolutely essential. I just don't write about it yet because I haven't quite figured out exactly where I'm going with it all. But they're absolutely essential.
So what are your favored isometric exercises or techniques?
I really like doing pull-up holds. And so if you have any lift that you are doing and you have a sudden weak spot in that lift, whatever it is, I would get on a machine, like a plate loaded machine, like a hammer strength machine. Or if you don't have access to a machine, do whatever the closest analog is with your body weight. And like if it's on a bench press, like 3/4 of the way up or halfway up, everybody's sticking point. That is the point where you have some kind of fascial issue that is limiting your body's power output. And you need to stay. And so your body's having to compensate by changing the position of your body in a minute way you don't even know. So by staying in that position, through that agonizing pain at times, in those spots, you will actually strengthen yourself in ways you can't even imagine. Because now, instead of having to generate an insane amount of power over a short range in the range of motion you can actually hit. And that in order to power through those sticking points, you can have a steady amount of power at that level through the entire range of motion, and you will literally get pulled off the ground with the force of your own press.
So how long would you hold these positions for?
As long as you can.
So there's no set time?
How would you know how long you could hold it if you don't hold?
No, because if you were going to release a protocol, you would, I mean, I'm assuming people would usually suggest a time frame just to give people a reference point.
As long as possible. Like, for instance, I love hanging from a pull-up bar. Like, I love it. And hanging from a pull-up bar is one of the greatest isometric things you could possibly do. It really helps with shoulder health. But I roll my shoulders and I do all kinds of different stuff that isn't just hanging from a pull-up bar. And I also don't, what am I going to sit there with a fucking stopwatch every time I do it? I do it 20, 30 times a day. Like, I just don't understand what the point of that question is.
I think your microphones went on mute, Jamie.
I know. I put it on mute so that you didn't have to hear me coughing.
This is a roller coaster, Jamie. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to lie, mate.
I'm trying to bring the goods for you.
And it's very much appreciated. It's very much appreciated.
All right.
So another question I wanted to ask was...
Well, no, now I would like to... How long... So what would you say to that?
I would just like a reference point in my head to count, just to give me something that I could build upon.
So I would say I hang from a pull-up bar at least 5 times a day for... I mean, so based on the amount of fascial problems you have in your hands, especially, you won't be able to hold onto the bar that long.
Yeah.
But I do 30 to 60 seconds probably. I don't do a lot longer than that. You don't have to set a fucking record there. But the point is you're trying to stretch yourself. Yeah. And also you can, if you grip the bar, did you ever read Pavel's thing about enervation?
Yeah. Is this irradiation?
Maybe it is irradiation where you grip the bar hard and then the power radiates down.
Yeah.
So there is something to that. But I think that if you grab the bar as hard as you can, you don't realize that you only use your strong fingers. Do you realize that?
No, I never thought
you pull on something.
I thought you were just kind of activating other muscles within the body and it was making you stronger overall. That was the message I
think that's what he thought about it. But actually, Pavel was not a strong man. He was a marketer. He was just a marketer. He was just a hairy little marketing man with no shirt on. But what gripping the bar really hard will do for you, especially during isometrics, you will feel shit change in your body for real. Like you will feel as you're gripping the bar and you're holding it maybe at the 3/4 part of a press. You'll feel shit in your shoulders start to go snap, crackle, and pop. And as you start to realize, oh, well, I can now force my shoulders down and I can force my shoulders back and I can force my shoulders up. And, oh, I've always been rounding my shoulders. I need to pull them back. And then I realized packing your shoulders, don't do it. Keep your back flat when you're benching, like all the old school guys that everybody's been fucking ogling and saying they had great genetics. No, they did pullovers and they benched with a flat back with a 2-second pause on their chest. So be a fucking adult about it and do it that way. The way we were taught to do it back in the day. Not before powerlifters fucked up the whole thing.
See, that's something I actually implement in my training when I do pull-ups. I like to hold positions for certain lengths of time and just get stronger in them, or do like half a rep and then go into a full rep just to change the movement up, because chin-ups, they don't get boring, but you become too good at them and you can just crank out so many numbers, and I think it comes at the expense of joint integrity at times. So it's always a case of trying to make them more difficult.
And people cut their reps short, or a lot of people cut their reps short when they're doing high reps. Do you always do the full rep every time?
See, that's a good question, because it depends. If I am doing, say, like I'm going for 100, 200 chin-ups in a session and I'm trying to do it in a conditioning context, then I will limit the range of motion just to get through the reps fast and try and get a better time with regards to how many rounds I can complete within so many minutes. But if I decide to slow things down, I will choose
Are you writing this stuff down?
No, we just have workouts that we use as tests, so to speak. Like we use the Cindy workout from CrossFit. It's 5 chin-ups, 10 push-ups, 15 squats, 20 minutes, as many rounds as you can possibly do. So you're just trying to remain in perpetual motion.
Oh, I like that. That's nice.
Yeah, it's a great workout. It's a good tester to kind of realize your conditioning. And another one we'll do is we like to call this the golden standard of conditioning, where we will do 5 chin-ups, 10 push-ups, and 15 squats on the first minute. And on the second minute, we'll do 10 burpees, and we'll keep that going for 60 minutes continuously.
Ooh, all right. Nice. That's a good one.
Yeah, but it's really brutal. So you're kind of using hacks in some respect with regards to range of motion on your chin-ups. I'm not saying that you're doing Johnny half-rep shit, but at the same time, you're not going down full extension and holding. You're just trying to crank them out because it's all about time. But
I would like to say that if you look at the old school guys and you look at gymnasts in particular, their biceps are beautiful, right?
Yeah.
A lot of that is from doing straight arm exercises. You don't see gymnasts doing a lot of bent arm stuff. And so they do their iron cross. They do like all of that shit that we always have been doing with bent arms or slightly bent arms has really like shortened our biceps and things like that. And if you do these levers and things like that, or just hang from the bar, especially with a curl grip, and just hang there, you will notice your arms look prettier and you feel better. Like that's something that I think people are really missing, is that full, like really getting a stretch on their biceps and their pecs at the bottom of that movement.
Yeah. Gymnasts, I always think that gymnasts have probably got the best, I don't want to say upper body development when you look at the Olympics, but definitely around the shoulders and the arms. It's mind-boggling actually to look at it. You're going, what the actual fuck, man? How do I get to that level? But then you're getting these biomechanic guys that are now starting to come on to Instagram and are talking about how chin-ups are not a great biceps exercise. And it starts to create this fucking whirlwind of doubt in your head at times.
They don't know what the fuck they're... Okay, so there is no such thing as sports science. That is a lie. It is literally a lie. The entire idea of sports science is predicated upon people who worked in the carnival trying to make money. So they would sell programs that usually they didn't write or do. So like George Hackenschmidt's programs and book, he didn't write that fucking book. Like Jesus Christ, like he didn't do any of those things. Eugen Sandow didn't do his program. They had hack writers writing these things, and they sold them to idiots to do because they were easy. That was the sole, when they would give their writers a rule, like it had to be easy. And so like everything that we have been doing is so wrong. But like these programs that are, so these old school guys, they would do a lot of hanging from like, or they would do, do you do overhead claps? What is this exercise? So you're here, you clap overhead, you clap in the front, you clap overhead, you clap in front. I love that exercise. What is it called? You're a body weight guy.
What's happening to
my camera?
I've never seen that exercise in my life.
Oh, okay. Well, I love
I don't do advanced calisthenics. I do simple press-ups, squats, pull-ups, chin-ups. I don't do the fancy stuff.
I moved and I ruined the whole thing. Okay.
It's okay. It still looks the same to me.
Camera looks like, oh, does it? All right, cool. Still looks like shit, whatever. Yeah, so but anyway, so just the sports science, the idea of sports science came from these guys who are selling these bullshit programs. And one of these guys who was in Russia, and he was trying to survive the Soviet takeover of Russia, because he was a nobleman who had been training with all of the people in St. Petersburg, like Hackenschmidt. They were, Tsar Nicholas II was their coach, and he was also the Tsar's coke dealer. And so these guys were training their fucking asses off on coke. And then most of them got sent to sent to Siberia. But this one guy started a sports science program at the University of St. Petersburg. People in America, also on coke, did the exact same thing. And they were just trying to, like Sigmund Freud, justify their existence on planet Earth. So they were looking at what people had done and seeing if they could extrapolate what people should do, because science was a very new word at the time, and Victorian science made it part of pop culture. So this is a bullshit, entirely bullshit industry. It's bullshit in ways I can't even describe. I would like to cage fight every fucking alleged sports scientist on the planet because they're a fucking liar. Either that or they've never taken statistics, because you cannot make a scientific statement based on a study of 12 people. You can't. Cannot. It is literally one of the first things you learn in statistics.
Yeah. But it seems like science is the big thing in training nowadays.
Yeah, but none of them know it. And then they'll talk about genetics, and it's everything they say there. Like, they talk about genetics like it's like it's fate or their astrology. Fucking idiots. It's offensive. They're a fucking disgrace. And anybody who's listening to this who is a sports scientist, go fuck yourself.
Jamie, I'm offended you used the word program. You've actually broke the podcast protocol.
Damn it.
That's a strike. And I loved how you spoke about these people taking coke while drinking some Diet Coke yourself.
What is wrong with Diet Coke?
Nothing. I like Diet Coke. It's not as good as Iron Brew, though. We've got a drink in Scotland called Iron Brew, which is illegal in America.
Because it's slightly alcoholic, or what?
I think it's got preservatives in it that are banned in the States. I think it's just too manly for Americans, to be honest with you.
It has Donald Denny on there, and we just can't handle him. He's too much. He's too much for our tiny American brains.
Listen, Jamie, Jamie.
Oh, I don't know what happened. I can't hear you. Can you hear me? Did you mute yourself? It looks like you.
Sorry about that, Jamie. I pressed my mouse there by accident.
That's all right. At least it was your fault, but not mine.
I'm going to have to wrap this up at this point. I've been past the hour mark, and I've got family duties to attend to.
Oh, well, damn it.
I like to keep it short because I like to get people on again. And
okay,
I have thoroughly enjoyed myself. That was a roller coaster for me.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. We went all over the place. It was definitely a wild ride.
Yeah, but I expected that to a certain degree. But you're what we would call in Scotland. Yeah, you're what we would say in Scotland. You're some man.
I'm gonna have to go.
You're some boy. That's what we would call you. But anyway, Jamie, it's been an absolute blast. Hopefully, people got a lot of value from that, because I know I did.
I hope so. And sports scientist, if I offended you, I just just look at your lives and look what you've done. And you cannot apply any small samples to a large population. It violates the laws of statistics. And somatotyping, by the way, is also not science. Like your mesotype or I'm an ectomorph or an endomorph, that was bunk science in 1939. And it was invented by a guy who was trying to keep people in jail based on their body type.
Jamie, I'm going to have a bunch of sports scientists with pitchforks outside my house when this podcast drops.
Well, you know what? They're easily defeated by statistics or actual science.
Anyway, that was the one and only Jamie Lewis. Jamie, thank you.
I will bow, but you can't see it because my camera's shit.